Coming up, Kay Warren opens up about life, marriage, and the early years of ministry.
It hasn't been a perfect journey. There have been mistakes along the way.
And inside, we were just dying, and we didn't know who to tell.
And the breaking point that could have changed the course of her life.
I was willing to risk everything. My life and my ministry would have been completely different.
The conversation starts now. Real friends, loving, laughing, and learning together. Sharing stories, one life at a time. So grab a seat. Welcome to Joni Table Talk.
Well, what does it mean to be a pastor's wife? Some see it as a dream come true. Others see it as a behind-the-scenes path. And then there are those who would rather be anything else but this. Well, today, with the help of our special guest, we'll look at this complicated and often misunderstood role in the church. Joining me around the table is a dear friend, hadn't seen in a while, from Seattle, Washington, Wendy Treat. Welcome.
Love it. Love being
Pastor's
here.
wife for how many years?
Well, we've been pastoring for 37 years.
Wow.
But I'm a PK, too. So I was a pastor's kid.
Oh, pastor's kid and
And
pastor's
my mom was
wife.
a pastor's kid, and her mom was a pastor.
Wow.
So we had a lot of pastors.
All right. You have a lot of information over
That's
there
right.
on that. I know. April Simons, pastor's kid and pastor's wife.
Yeah, ditto.
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 And they're done that.
And mother of many children.
Many, 5 the
Yes,
last time
5.
I counted.
One's in the audience today. We're so glad. Savannah's here. Cindy Murdock, how are you?
I'm great, thank you.
And I'll tell you what, another special, and you pastor's wife for many years, by the way, I want to say. But we're so glad, first time at the table, Kay Warren is here.
So excited.
We're so glad
fun to
you're
be
here.
here.
I
Thank
tell you
you.
what, we're really excited about your book. Well, for over 3 decades, Rick and Kay Warren have pastored Saddleback Church in Lake Forest, California, and they're always open about their lives. Take a look.
You got to make choices.
Boy, you just kind of went all over the place with that. So, what I was saying
And what I was continuing to say, no.
about differences is, you have heard Rick say this, and we'll say it again, we are so different.
Yeah.
I mean, if there was a category of so different, we would fall into the so different category. In every way, we are different. And in a relationship, that's one of the things that causes people to lose some of the great loving feelings they have, is because they don't know what to do with the differences. I mean, he's an extrovert, I'm an introvert. He is spontaneous and impulsive, and I am a planner. He's big picture, I am detail. I mean, there's been this piece of fuzz on your shirt that I have meant to take off this entire...
I don't see it.
Well, I know, but it's back here, so it's been driving me, it's been bugging me this whole time. He exaggerates. He exaggerates, and I'm very precise. You know,
I'm Tigger.
Eeyore.
She's the Eeyore.
Yeah, he's
That's
a
exactly
dreamer.
right.
I'm a pragmatist. I mean, it is a
Exactly.
wonder that we have made it 39 years because of our differences. But what that has required from us is acceptance.
Well, it would be easy to look at all their accomplishments and assume it wasn't a difficult road, but in her new book, Sacred Privilege, Kay gets real about what it means to be a pastor's wife. I love the fact that the name of it, Sacred Privilege. Mm-hmm. It really is an honor and a privilege, isn't it, to serve God's people. But in the book, you're very honest and transparent in that you say, hey, it hasn't been a perfect journey. There have been mistakes along the way, and
Too many to count.
too many to count. Would all of you say that you feel the same as far as pastoring, that there are things you've done right and wrong and in between?
Absolutely.
Amen.
A lot.
I'd like some do-overs.
Yes,
That's what I
you
was
know?
thinking.
Yeah. Go back.
I know, if we could do do-overs.
Yeah.
I was talking to my daughter-in-love, and we were talking about, she's got these small little children now, and she was like, you know, I was just sitting in the floor playing with them, and you know, I just didn't get anything done, and I was like, that is amazing.
Yes.
I never hear a mother say, oh, I just spent way too much time playing with my kids. No, you look back and you say, I wish I'd have spent
That's
it more
right.
time.
Yes.
That's
So I was
right.
so proud of her for that.
Yeah.
But like, if we could do over, there's a lot of things we could do over. But you've taken everything and shared, hoping to help future generations.
Well, yeah, and it is for women who are just starting out as a pastor's wife, because I feel like if I can give them some foundational stuff, then maybe I can spare them some of the mistakes, that I made. But it's also for women in the middle. Maybe they've been in ministry for, 15, 20 years, and they've made some of those mistakes already, but they really want to last, and so it's encouragement to stay in there.
Yeah.
And then it's also for women. I mean, I'm 63, so I'm more at that tail end of, I don't know how long I'm around, but I'm certainly not at the beginning.
Doesn't she look amazing?
Oh my gosh. Lady Claire,
Everybody's
makeup.
I cannot believe that.
But for people also like me at this stage of life who really want to finish well.
Yes. Yeah, that's good. Do we all want to finish well?
Yeah, I think she says that well, because it's not only for a beginner, because like me too, like a person that's been in it for a long time, you read that and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm not alone. Yeah, I get that, and it's grace is given, like as opposed to feeling like I've just been a failure all this time. You read and you're like, oh, I feel hope.
And isn't it interesting that as we get older, and hopefully a little wiser, that you still have that capacity to want to learn, and you're maybe even more open.
That's right.
To learning new truths and hearing from what people have to say.
Definitely. There's many times I've tried to draw on my parents what they did, and if I had a book like that to be able to read it right there in front of me, it would be great.
That's what I was thinking, in that I came from a business family home and married at 16 and went right into full-time ministry in a church, and I just thought it would come natural. And I wish I had had somebody or a book or somebody that could have said, let me just help you and save you some tears and save you some rough times.
That's good.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about growing up and, of course, meeting Pastor Rick Warren.
Yeah, well, I wasn't real impressed with him at first. So, I, like you, grew up in a pastor's home, and Rick did as well. So we both were PKs, and we met at a Christian college in California, and a small Christian college, so you knew everybody really fast. And I knew of Rick because he was an extrovert, and he did a lot of preaching, even as a young college student around California.
No, he wasn't an extrovert.
I know. He's a Tigger. He out-Tiggers Tigger. But I was dating his best friend. And I really fell in love with this guy. He was great. I thought he was it. And he didn't feel the same about me. And so pretty quickly we broke up. What I didn't know is that Rick had come to my dad's church in Northern California at that time, and I was playing the piano, dutiful pastor's daughter, and Rick was preaching that service, and he says he looked over at me, and he felt like the Lord said, you're going to marry that girl. And he remembers thinking, well, that's kind of crazy, because first of all, she's dating my best friend, and secondly, I'm not interested in her. I had no idea that this had happened. But when this guy broke up with me, Rick says I came around the corner at college, and it's like Cupid's arrow hit him, and he fell in love with me madly. I'm ignorant of this. He goes, takes me out on a date. I didn't really want to go because I'm still crazy about this other guy. But we went. 8 days later, he asked me to marry him.
Wow.
And
wow.
Yeah,
that's funny. We're not recommending that.
Yeah. No. I didn't even tell my kids that for years. It was like, no, how did you and Dad meet? Well, we'll tell you someday when you can handle it. But I felt like God said to me in that moment after he asked me to marry him, and I'm like, I don't love him. God, what am I supposed to do here? It was the first time I ever heard God speak to me. And God said, marry him, and I'll bring the feelings. So I said yes. So with my 19-year-old understanding of God, faith, how God works, romance, marriage, I said yes. A year and a half later, we got married, and we were complete strangers because he had moved to Japan, I had moved to Alabama, so we were strangers. There's no internet, there's no Twitter, there's no nothing, and we were strangers when we got married. And so we descended into marital hell pretty fast.
Oh my
It was
goodness.
bad news.
And you talk about this in the book. And one of the things also that you talk about in the book that I think is important, there's a lot of people that have suffered silently with child molestation. And even some of you watching right now that you've gone through this, you've never talked about it, you've never maybe even dealt with it. There's been a lot of shame attached to it. You mentioned that this happened with you. Was it someone at the church?
The son of the church janitor. And my parents, I didn't tell them at the time. I was like 4 or 5. And when I told them, when I was about 20, they were horrified because they couldn't even imagine a scenario in which that I had been away from them at that young of an age, enough to where that could have happened. But it did. And so when I told Rick, he was the first person I'd ever told. And what he didn't know was that I had started, I'd found an attraction to pornography. I'd been broken as a child in my sexuality, had a neighbor who had pornography. I got interested. And here's this good girl loving Jesus, but interested in pornography. And he marries me and doesn't know this. And so of course, sex didn't work. And
so kind of little hidden things there.
Yes.
Because if you bring pornography into the bedroom, you're going to have a lot of other issues as well.
That's
I
right.
know you hear that.
Yeah, but even having you say that, I just have to say how courageous of you. You know, you're looking at this wonderful, innocent, great woman of God, and you're saying women that are Christian can get addicted and have had past history of being addicted to pornography. How amazing. Just the fact that that's in the book, that's like, get the book.
Well, because I don't think most books or instruction to pastors' wives is honest enough.
That's true.
It's all about, you know, what kind of brand of mac and cheese to keep in your cupboard in case the unexpected parishioner comes by, or, you know, which
Instead of real life
instead of
issues.
the real life fact
It's a
that
facade.
it is, and then it sets us up to try to live under pressure that we weren't meant to live under.
Well, and I think oftentimes it's not shared with us that because of all this hidden stuff, and you said your marriage kind of just went into a hellish Hades hell, that there were some major sexual issues.
Yes, and we didn't know who to talk to.
Well, yeah, because who do you as pastor?
He was a youth pastor at the time, and we had this sort of biblical, oh, God told you to marry, you know, one of those kind of, sounds like storybook romance things. And so people were thinking, you know, we got home from the honeymoon, and people were like, so how was the honeymoon? And we're like, it was great. And inside we were just dying, and we didn't know who to tell.
So how did you work through that particular issue?
Well, we really believe in counseling.
Yeah.
We really believe in marriage counseling, even though, and people would say, well, we can't afford it. We couldn't either. We charged it to our credit card.
Can't afford not to,
You
right?
can't afford not to. And it was when the pain exceeded the fear and the shame that we finally decided to ask
the
for
pain
some help.
exceeded the fear and the shame, and you were ready to shine the light on it and talk to someone about it.
Well, we just couldn't imagine divorce. We didn't feel was an option for us. We felt like that the vows that we had taken, we meant them, we intended to live them out, but it felt like we were consigning ourselves for a lifetime of misery. And so we didn't want to live in that miserable place.
So did you have to resolve those things that had happened to you as a child, and the pornography before sex could be what God intended it to be?
A lot of that, and that's a process, you know? I mean, God, you and I have talked earlier, Joni, sometimes God he heals somebody of something in a second. God does that. Often he doesn't. Often it's a process and a journey, and for us it was a process and a journey.
I love the way you're just open about all this stuff, because a lot of pastors, people, I remember you said this once at a conference we did together, you know, counseling is like taboo. And I remember listening to your husband, I listened to him all the time, and he said, you know, you had to charge counseling, but y'all both wanted it. You both didn't want divorce. And so
and you can't save your marriage by yourself. I don't want to leave, you know, I don't want to leave a false even expectation on that. We both wanted to save our marriage.
That's good.
One of the things you talk about in the book is that in this process, that emotionally you had almost an attachment with someone before y'all went for counseling.
You're going to go through all the here. I did in the period
My producer is standing there telling me things.
Well, and I wrote it because I wanted it to help somebody else. Early in our marriage, he was in seminary, in fact, and we had started counseling, but there was still so much to overcome. And where I was working, I was putting Rick through while he was seminary. My desk sat right in front of the elevator, and the elevator door opened to this gorgeous guy who walked out, and I just was smitten. I mean, it was like fantasy land. He was just gorgeous. And so with my broken mind, if you will, my spirit, our marriage messed up, I just kind of built this fantasy life around this guy. What would it be like to be in a relationship with him? And I began, you know, I would follow him at the office. I would find reason to go, you know, talk to him in the lunchroom. And before I knew it, I really had an emotional attachment to him. And then one day I walked by his office as he happened to be on the phone talking to his wife, and he was so mean. He was swearing at her. He was a jerk. I mean, it was like a pin burst that bubble. Yes.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, he's a jerk. I'm not interested in him.
Yeah.
But how scary it was that I was willing, because my marriage, because we didn't know how to love each other well, I was willing to risk everything what if that guy had been attracted to me in return? I mean, what if he had found this silly little bubblegum girl attractive and then I put me in the place where I had to decide, would I have an affair or not?
Yeah.
My life and my ministry would have been completely different.
Wow.
How many times does that happen?
Oh, my goodness.
It's
this scenario.
Oh, when you're talking like that, all I can think about is the amount of people that are right now in all those choices. They're all in that decision factor. We didn't have Facebook in the time that you're talking, and the Instagram and the Twitter, which they talk about, the social media and Facebook alone, how many relationships are started and motivated in that. And when you're saying that, I'm like, oh my gosh, people have to realize how their fantasy world can start in this, in this little tiny seed and how it could grow. And all I can think about is, praise God, He let you see something.
I'm so grateful.
And popped it.
I would have missed out. I mean, we've had to work hard to build a strong marriage. I mean, it's been blood, sweat, and tears. A lot of blood on the ground, a lot of tears, a lot of sweat to build the relationship that we have today. I would have lost it, or I would have put it at risk.
Right.
I put it at risk by that, but I could have lost my marriage. I wouldn't have been the mom to the 3 best kids in the world. I wouldn't be the Grammy that I am to the 5 best grandkids. I wouldn't have been a part of starting Saddleback Church, the love of my life. I mean, everything that now I hold near and dear.
Your husband might not have written The Purpose-Driven Life.
No, seriously, it's true. God brought us together, and I put it at risk.
What would you say or feel like maybe was one of the big keys that you could share with us that you felt like helped change the whole scenario there? We know God.
Yeah.
And counseling.
And counseling.
But I know you said something about learning to love well. And then was there something about just accepting who you were?
Well, we both have made a commitment to grow. I mean, I really feel like because I have a personal commitment, I'm not just talking about salvation, I want to grow. I want God to smooth off my rough edges. I don't want to be the person that I am today. I mean, I've grown so much, but I want to keep being made into the image of Christ. And that takes a commitment. It takes a willingness to say yes. It takes a willingness to love over and over when it gets hard. And I think because we both had that same commitment that said, you know what? Yeah, we've got a mess here between us, and you're immature and I'm immature, and you've got some broken spots and I've got some broken spots. But at the end of the day, I want to be like Jesus. And if I grow in my character, that's got to spill over, into improving our relationship together. But that took both of us choosing to walk into Christ likeness so that could impact our marriage.
And, with you guys, y'all are opposites. And usually opposites do attract.
Yeah.
And
that's
fun.
God's sense of humor.
Yeah, that's fun. It's fun when you're dating. However, when you get married, you're trying to change the other one. I mean, you have to understand that's the way God created you. This is the way God created Rick. But I'm saying if you're going to get married, then you don't need to get married if you're selfish.
Yeah,
exactly.
Because I think that is like the one key thing in marriage is that we have to be unselfish. We have to prefer our spouse over ourselves. I mean, if you're going to have a good marriage.
If you're going to have a good
But
one.
if you're selfish, it's not ever going to work, is it?
But not only that, you have to, applaud the differences.
Yeah.
But also recognize, sometimes we say there's tremendous differences. There are. But you marry somebody that also has the same belief cause inside.
Yeah.
And so sometimes
That's
you have
important.
to...
It is.
Fully yoked.
You've got that. So you've got that equalness there, but your personalities are different. And we have to learn how to applaud and not always want to change the difference that we see,
That's good.
That's good. I know that we showed a clip of you and Rick, and he was talking about you, and you were talking about him, and it was so funny because you like a plan. He's spontaneous. And so working past all of that, but what would you say were a couple of the keys for you two coming together to have the relationship you have today?
Well, all the things that we've said, selfishness is a big one. And I've actually...
Because we're all very selfish.
Well, we are. Yeah. And I think I ask the question, what's it like to be on the other side of me? And I ask myself that a lot. Because anytime I'm in a conflict with Rick or even with my kids or something through the years, because I always think that they're wrong, first. So when I take a step back and go, what's it like to be on the other side of me? What's it like for them to have to be dealing with me? And I see myself more clearly, and I do see so much selfishness and working on that. Forgiveness. I mean,
That's
you
huge.
cannot have a relationship with a friend, with a family member, a husband, unless there's a lot of forgiveness and a
Right.
willingness to say, you know what, let's start again.
Yeah,
I know that was yesterday. Let's start again today.
that's good.
Wow. You know, you also said something I thought was great to me earlier about the climbing the mountain. Well, how did you say that?
I said every issue is not a mountain to die on,
Yeah.
not a hill to die on. And for me, I love being right, and I tend to think I am right. And I grew up in a home in which
My kids say that about me.
well, that's why I like you.
But then they will say, and most of the time you are right, but when you're not, it's very hard for you to admit. I'm like,
No, it's like
I know. But in marriage, you have to figure out that not every issue is a hill to die on.
Yeah.
So let's just say I'm right about this. Is it worth is it worth putting stress in the relationship? Is it worth causing conflict over something that really doesn't matter?
You have to choose your battles.
You do have to choose your battles.
Yeah.
you really do.
One time, I don't remember who taught this in some marriage, because I read marriage books. I want to talk marriage so I can have today a great marriage,
Yeah.
because, you have to go for it. You have to believe for it.
You have to keep
but
working
one
on it.
thing
Yes.
one person said is, if you take a big puzzle and you realize, like, say if there's even 50 pieces in the puzzle, sometimes you'll say to your husband, you are. And he hears, I'm all 50 bad pieces of the puzzle. And so I've learned to say, okay, like if we're talking money, I say, in this, there's 50, and I'll say it out loud, there's 50 pieces in this puzzle. Man, 49 of them you have got all in order, and I'm just so proud of you. But this one, one piece, because it defines it as opposed to all of you is bad. No, there's just only one part do I want to have a conversation about. These all, no, we're not talking over here.
Yeah.
Only this.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
We were talking earlier, and really in yours and Casey's testimony, you both have gone through some life-threatening things.
Yeah.
Cancer. And of course, Kay, you talk about in the book losing your son, your baby son. And they say the greatest loss, psychologists say this, hands down, is the loss of a child.
It is.
That it is one of the most difficult losses
You don't get over it.
to get through.
Yeah, and you don't get over it. And I don't even want to get over it. Why would I? He's my child. Why would I ever want to get over?
This was your baby.
My baby.
Your baby boy.
Yeah, he was my youngest at 27 when he took his life. And I'm learning how to live. I say it's wonderful, terrible. People ask me how I am, and I say I am wonderful, terrible. And that's the most honest way I know how to say it. There are parts of my life that truly are wonderful. There is beauty in the world. I have a great marriage. I love my church. I mean, there's so much.
You got great kids and grandkids. Great
There is so
family.
much in my life that is wonderful. And there is this gaping hole where my son was and will no ever be again on this earth. And that's terrible. And I'm getting used to and getting okay with wonderful, terrible. It's okay. I'm supposed to miss him. He was my child. He's my child. Right. He doesn't stop being my child just because he's in heaven. So I'm learning how to live with tears in my eyes and a smile on my face.
Yeah.
And I would just tell anybody who's going through grief or who's lost a child, don't let anybody hurry you. Don't let anybody rush you. Don't let anybody make you feel like you should be over it. No, even the Bible talks about, did Rachel ever stop weeping for her children? She wept for, no. Mothers are attached to their children, and that's the way it's supposed to be.
You talk about mental illness in here, and he suffered with some mental and emotional issues. I know as a pastor's wife, really all of you, but Wendy, I'm sure you've had to deal with situations in your church over the years where someone lost a child.
Yep.
And
two of my closest friends, both have lost sons.
What do you say as a pastor's wife? I mean,
well, I'm like, I get emotional listening to you, because I'm like, that is by far, when you think about that. And I think that's where something like this and being so vulnerable, when you communicate, when you say that, it's like every woman and every pastor's wife that hears this, recognize that you're in a company of women that are designed, that we want to go forward. We want to live the best that God can have. But it doesn't mean that we don't go through valleys and that we don't have, side swipes, like you're driving down the car, boom, a car come and hits you on the side and you don't know what to do. And that's where these kind of words of life that you give and that you share, that you don't walk alone. And that I think there's something that happens with that, recognizing I'm a part of the church, the family of God, And if you're not, get in.
Yes.
And get this kind of strength and help. You know, it's amazing. Yeah.
Well, and to grieve in the church, that is, I can't emphasize that enough. Too often, I've talked to people who were believers. I mean, they're still believers, but when they lost a child, they left the church because it felt like nobody understood.
Or their marriage fell apart.
Their marriage fell apart. But sad to me, the people who say that they quit coming to church then because at first it was too hard, and they've never gone back. And that's often because they've not felt they could grieve in the church.
Did people make it feel like they can't grieve, that they shouldn't be grieving?
We just aren't comfortable with grief. None of us. We don't know what to do with it. We think it should last a shorter amount of time, or that you should get over it, or that I'm not the same person.
No.
I'm not the same person.
Everyone
Rick
is
and
different.
Well, but we're not the same people that we were the day before he died. Those people are gone. We're different people today. And there are some people who can handle that, and others understand, and some are willing to enter into the grief. I would just say to your listeners and anybody in the church, let grieving people grieve. It's okay.
And just be there for them.
Be there for them. Be there for them. Listen, hug. Don't give them all the platitudes. Well, at least you had him 27 years. No. I wanted him all of my life.
Please don't say that. We should do a show on all the wrong things
We
you
should,
say.
because they're endless of the things that people try to say.
I was thinking, sitting here, Cindy, you've heard her story many times, of course. She was married, a pastor's wife for many years, went through a divorce, which was also almost like a death. You're now remarried to a wonderful man, but I have to speak to those of you that are watching that have experienced divorce. I mean, maybe you're in ministry, and I just want to say that, you're not a throwaway, and God still has purpose for you. He has a purpose-driven life that continues, even with all our mistakes along the way. So you be encouraged as well today. I think we've tried to be transparent, all of us, and just share that we're human beings that have feet of clay, but we serve a big God who lives on the inside of us, and that's who we want to share with you today. So thank you so much for watching today. We are out of time. I want to thank Kay for joining us at the table. And if you're a pastor's wife, or if you're an evangelist's wife, or if you're in the ministry yourself, and or you're thinking about becoming one, maybe you want a little insight into one of the strongest support and leadership roles in the church, then you've got to check out Kay's new book, Sacred Privilege, Your Life and Ministry as a Pastor's Wife. It'll be a real eye-opener, and I think it'll really help prepare you. And, of course, it's available now. You can visit her online at kwarren.com. That's kwarren.com. And, as always, there's a need in your life. You're watching today. You say, you know what, I'm going through something. That's why that toll-free number is on the screen. We want you to call that number. We have prayer partners available 24/7. You can also go to daystar.com, click on prayer, send your prayer request in. We have a prayer department that prays over those prayer requests every day. So you're important to us, and that's why we're here. Also, make sure to join the conversation online after the program by leaving a comment on Facebook or Twitter. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you, Wendy Treat.
Love it.
For being here. Thank you, Kay Warren. And then my besties here, April and Cindy. Thank you. Thank you for watching. I hope you've been encouraged today. Bye-bye.
This has been a Daystar television production.